In the glittering ballroom of Shanghai's Grand Hyatt, a heartbroken tech heir was about to deliver the most vengeful proposal in the city's elite social history. What started as a romantic anniversary celebration took a shocking turn when he came face to face with betrayal in a supply closet. Liu Ze wasn't your typical privileged university student. For 5 years, he had spent his life building what he believed was an unshakable relationship with Jia, known for his careful planning and unwavering loyalty. When he encountered his girlfriend, tangled with his own cousin during their anniversary party, he had no idea he was walking into a moment that would redefine love, revenge, and redemption. Liu Ze made a split-second decision that would lead to a fake engagement becoming devastatingly real. What began as calculated emotional warfare would become an unexpected journey of authentic vulnerability. Shanghai's elite university scene would never be the same after two people discovered that. Sometimes the most genuine love stories emerge from the most dishonest beginnings. The champagne was crystal baccarat, the betrayal was 7 months in. The making and the revenge proposal would change everything, including the revenger's own heart. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. If this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The champagne flutes were crystal baccarat. The roses were imported from Ecuador. The violinist I'd hired played Pachelbel's canon in D, while guests mingled on the rooftop terrace overlooking Shanghai's glittering skyline. Everything was perfect exactly the way Jia deserved for our 5th anniversary. I checked my watch. 9:47 p.m. Almost time. Engagement ring burned like a coal in my jacket pocket. It's a carat's princess cut, set in platinum. I'd spent 3 months designing it with the jeweler, making sure every detail matched her Pinterest board that she thought I didn't know about. Liu Ze, you outdid yourself this time, Professor Kian said, appearing beside me with a glass of wine. Though I have to ask, isn't this a bit much for an anniversary? Nothing's too much for Jia. He studied me with those perceptive eyes that made half the university's students squirm during ethics lectures. Where's the guest of honor anyway? Good question. I'd lost track of her 20 minutes ago. Last I saw, she was laughing with a group near the dessert table, her red dress catching the city lights like fire. My cousin Meng Yuan had been hovering around her all evening. Typical. He always gravitated toward whatever I had. I should find her, I said. The surprise is almost ready. I excused myself and wove through the crowd. Classmates, professors, family friends, everyone who mattered was here. Grandpa Liu held court near the bar, regaling some business associates with stories about the family tech empire. He caught my eye and raised his glass with a knowing smile. He'd been dropping hints about marriage for months. The violinist finished the song. Time for the proposal. But where was Jia? I checked the lounge area. Empty. The bathroom line was full of her sorority sisters. But no Jia. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I headed toward the building's interior. The supply closet door was slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack. I heard her laugh first, breathy, intimate, the way she used to laugh with me during our first year together. Then I heard Meng Hyun's voice. God, you taste like strawberries. My hand froze on the door handle. We shouldn't be doing this here, Jia whispered. But she didn't sound like she wanted to stop. When then? He's watching you like a hawk tonight. Did you see that ring box outline in his jacket? My blood turned to ice water. Can't keep pretending forever, Yuan. This is killing me. Then don't. Tell him the truth. Destroy everything. His family business partnership with yours? The wedding his grandfather's already planning? You know, Liu Ze, he doesn't just lose things, he annihilates them. I pushed the door open. He sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Jia's lipstick was smeared. Meng Yuan's shirt was wrinkled, his belt undone. He'd been at this for a while. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The party noise faded to white static in my ears. Liu Ze, Jia breathed. Her face went ash pale. This isn't we weren't how long? My voice came out steady, eerily calm. She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears started forming in her eyes, those practiced tears that used to make me cave to whatever she wanted. 6 months, Meng Yuan said with a smirk. Maybe 7. before our 4th anniversary trip to Bali, before she said she loved me in that little temple overlooking the ocean, before I'd started planning tonight. I pulled the ring box from my pocket and set it on the supply shelf. Gia's eyes widened. "Congratulations," I said. "You saved me from making a mistake." Then I walked away. The party continued around me like nothing had happened. Guests laughed and toasted and complimented the spread. Professor Keon gave me a searching look as I passed, but I kept moving toward the exit. My phone buzzed. Text from Gia. "Please let me explain." I deleted it without reading the rest. At home, I sat in my apartment's silence and scrolled through old messages. Pictures of happier times mocked me from my camera roll. Gia at the beach, Gia at graduation, Gia with her best friend Yuan, both of them laughing at some inside joke. Yoeen, I clicked on an old group chat from last month. Gia had been complaining about her internship, saying she felt trapped in the same routine every day. "Maybe you need something new to shake things up," Yuan had written. "But be careful what you wish for?" "What's that supposed to mean?" Gia had replied. "Nothing, just some people think the grass is greener until they realize they've burned their own garden." At the time, I'd thought it was just Yuan being her usual philosophical self. It's the quiet, serious one who always had a book in her hands and thoughtful. Advice for everyone else's problems. But now, it read like a warning Gia hadn't listened to. I found myself studying Yuan's profile picture. She was at the library naturally, wearing that oversized sweater she favored and her hair in a messy bun. No makeup, no pretense, just real. When had I stopped noticing real? The ring box sat on my coffee table where I'd thrown it after coming home, to carrots of wasted hope. But maybe it didn't have to be wasted. A terrible, brilliant idea began forming in my mind. The kind of idea that would either be genius or destroy everything in its path. I picked up my phone and started typing, "Yuan, are you awake? I need to ask you something important." The typing dots appeared immediately. Even at 2 a.m., she was probably studying. "What's wrong? You sound upset? Can I come over? I'll explain everything." Longer pause. Then, "Okay. But Gia's not here," she said. "She'd be at your place tonight." I laughed. Sound like breaking glass. "Perfect. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Liu Ze, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. I just have a proposition for you." I grabbed the ring box and my keys. Tomorrow morning, everyone was going to get the surprise of their lives. Yuan's apartment smelled like jasmine tea and old books. She opened the door in pajamas, simple cotton pants, and an oversized university sweatshirt, her hair still in that messy bun from her profile picture. No makeup, eyes puffy from lack of sleep. She looked perfect. "Liu Ze, what happened?" "You." Looked like she stopped, taking in my rumpled suit and probably haggard expression. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside, wrapping her arms around herself. "Is everything okay? Where's Gia?" "That's complicated." The living room was exactly what I'd expected. Textbooks stacked on every surface, her laptop open to what looked like a research paper. Tea-stained mugs forming rings on the coffee table. A complete contrast to Gia's meticulously curated Instagram-ready space. "Want some tea? You look like you need something warm." I shook my head. "Yuan, how long have you known?" She froze halfway to the kitchen. "Known what?" "About Gia and Ming Yuan." Her shoulders sagged. For a long moment, she didn't speak. 3 months, she finally whispered. I tried to tell her to stop. I tried to tell her she was making a mistake, but she said she couldn't help herself. That you two had grown apart, but you didn't tell me. She turned around, eyes flashing with something I'd never seen from quiet, dependable. "Yuan, what was I supposed to say?" "Hey, Liu Ze, your girlfriend is cheating on you with your cousin." "She's my roommate, my best friend. Was my best friend. And what am I?" The question hung in the air between us. Win's cheeks flushed pink. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I never knew where I stood with you." I pulled the ring box from my pocket. Her eyes widened. "Marry me." "Liu Ze, when I'm serious, marry me." She stared at the box like it might explode. "Are you having some kind of breakdown? The opposite?" I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. I opened the box. The diamond caught the lamplight and threw rainbows across the wall. Gia thinks I'm predictable. Thinks I'm some safe choice she can cheat on while keeping me as backup. Let's show her how wrong she is. This is insane, is it? You've been in love with me since freshman year. And Win went very still. I never said that. You didn't have to. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way. You always take my side when Gia complains about me. The way you remembered my coffee order after meeting me twice. Her face was burning red now. That doesn't mean say yes. It's Liu Ze. Say yes, and we both get what we want. Get! Me. I get revenge. And Gia gets to watch the two people she took for granted choose each other instead. I stepped closer. Ewan didn't back away. This is cruel, she whispered. So is cheating on someone for 7 months while they plan to propose. She closed. Her eyes, when she opened them again, something had shifted. If I say yes, what happens next? We play the part. We move in together. Make it look real. And when it stops being an act, the question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought that far ahead. We'll figure it out. Ewan reached for the ring with shaking fingers. You're going to break my heart, aren't you? But maybe it didn't have to be wasted. A terrible, brilliant idea began forming in my mind. The kind of idea that would either be genius or destroy everything in its path. I picked up my phone and started typing, Yuan, are you awake? I need to ask you something important. The typing dots appeared immediately. Even at 2 a.m., she was probably studying. What's wrong? You sound upset? Can I come over? I'll explain everything. Longer pause. Then, okay. But Gia's not here, she said. She'd be at your place tonight. I laughed. Sound like breaking glass. Perfect. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Liu Ze, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. I just have a proposition for you. I grabbed the ring box and my keys. Tomorrow morning, everyone was going to get the surprise of their lives. Yuan's apartment smelled like jasmine tea and old books. She opened the door in pajamas, simple cotton pants, and an oversized university sweatshirt, her hair still in that messy bun from her profile picture. No makeup, eyes puffy from lack of sleep. She looked perfect. Liu Ze, what happened? You. Looked like she stopped, taking in my rumpled suit and probably haggard expression. Can I come in? She stepped aside, wrapping her arms around herself. Is everything okay? Where's Gia? That's complicated. The living room was exactly what I'd expected. Textbooks stacked on every surface, her laptop open to what looked like a research paper. Tea-stained mugs forming rings on the coffee table. A complete contrast to Gia's meticulously curated Instagram-ready space. Want some tea? You look like you need something warm. I shook my head. Yuan, how long have you known? She froze halfway to the kitchen. Known what? About Gia and Meng Yuan. Her shoulders sagged. For a long moment, she didn't speak. 3 months, she finally whispered. I tried to tell her to stop. I tried to tell her she was making a mistake, but she said she couldn't help herself. That you two had grown apart. But you didn't tell me. She turned around, eyes flashing with something I'd never seen from quiet, dependable. Ewan, what was I supposed to say? Hey, Liu Ze, your girlfriend is cheating on you with your cousin. She's my roommate. My best friend. Was my best friend. And what am I? The question hung in the air between us. Win's cheeks flushed pink. I don't know, she said honestly. I never knew where I stood with you. I pulled the ring box from my pocket. Her eyes widened. Marry me. Liu Ze, when I'm serious, marry me. She stared at the box like it might explode. Are you having some kind of breakdown? The opposite? I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. I opened the box. The diamond caught the lamplight and threw rainbows across the wall. Gia thinks I'm predictable. Thinks I'm some safe choice she can cheat on while keeping me as backup. Let's show her how wrong she is. This is insane, is it? You've been in love with me since freshman year. And Win went very still. I never said that. You didn't have to. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way. You always take my side when Gia complains about me. The way you remembered my coffee order after meeting me twice. Her face was burning red now. That doesn't mean say yes. It's Liu Ze. Say yes, and we both get what we want. Get! Me. I get revenge. And Gia gets to watch the two people she took for granted choose each other instead. I stepped closer. Yuan didn't back away. This is cruel, she whispered. So is cheating on someone for 7 months while they plan to propose. She closed. Her eyes, when she opened them again, something had shifted. If I say yes, what happens next? We play the part. We move in together. Make it look real. And when it stops being an act, the question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought that far ahead. We'll figure it out. Yuan reached for the ring with shaking fingers. You're going to break my heart, aren't you? I might. But Gia definitely will, if you stay loyal to her. She slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I'd guessed her size from watching her play with Gia's jewelry. Okay, she said quietly. Let's break some hearts. The front door slammed open. Yuan, I need to talk. Gia stopped dead in the doorway, still wearing her red dress from the party. Her makeup was fixed, but I could see the guilt written all over her face. Her eyes went to the ring on Yuan's finger, then to me, then back. To the ring? What the fuck is this? Language, Gia, I said mildly. We have news. Yuan, take that off right now. This isn't funny. Yuan lifted her chin, a gesture I'd never seen from her before. I said yes. You said yes to what? You were supposed to propose to me. Were you planning to say yes? I asked. Or were you going to run back to Meng Yuan afterward and laugh about it? Gia's face crumpled. Liu Ze, please. Let me explain. Explain what? That you've been fucking my cousin for 7 months? That you called me predictable while I was planning our future? That you think I'm so pathetic I'd never find out? I never called you pathetic. No, you just treated me like I was. Yuan stood up straighter. Gia, you made your choice. Now Liu Ze is making his. This is insane. You can't just steal my boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected. I'm the one who proposed. Yuan didn't steal anything. You threw it away. The door opened again. Grandpa Li walked in, followed by Lily, Yuan's teenage sister. What's all the shouting about? Grandpa demanded. Then he saw the ring and broke into the biggest smile I'd seen from him in years. Finally, I was wondering when you'd come to your senses. Grandpa, I started. No need to explain, boy. I always knew this Yuan was the better choice. Smart, hardworking, loyal, everything a wife should be. He beamed at Yuan, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. When's the wedding? Hold on, Lily interrupted, pointing at Gia. Weren't you dating him like 6 hours ago? Gia burst into tears and ran out of the apartment. Well, Grandpa said, clapping his hands together, this calls for champagne. I'll have the lawyers draw up the prenup next week. After he left, promising to call everyone in the family with the good news, Lily cornered us. Okay, what's really going on? And don't lie, can smell bullshit from orbit. Yuan and I exchanged glances. It's complicated, Yuan said. Adults always say that when they're being stupid. Lily crossed her arms. Are you actually in love with him, or are you just tired of being invisible? The question hit harder than expected. Yuan's face went carefully blank. Does it matter? I said yes. Yeah, it matters. Because if this is just revenge, you're going to destroy each other. I thought about Meng Yuan's smirk, Gia's tears, the months of lies and careful deception. Maybe some things need to be destroyed. Lily rolled her eyes. Men are so dramatic. Fine, but when this blows up in your faces, don't come crying too. Me. After she left for school, Yuan and I stood in the sudden quiet of her apartment. So, she said, how does this work? You move in with me? We play house. Convince everyone we're madly in love. And what about actually being in love? I looked at her as Lee looked. The way her hair caught the morning light, the intelligence in her dark eyes, the strength it must have taken to say yes to something so insane. Let's see who breaks first. Moving in together was surprisingly easy. Yuan didn't have much clothes, books, and a pathetic collection of kitchen supplies that suggested she lived entirely on instant noodles and determination. I cleared out my guest room, but she shook her head. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. People will notice if we're sleeping in separate rooms. Are you sure? She hefted her suitcase toward my bedroom. I've shared a room with Gia. For 3 years, I can handle sharing one with you. The first night was awkward. I took the couch, but at 3 a.m. she appeared in the living room doorway like a ghost. This is ridiculous. It's your apartment, your bed. I'll sleep on one side, you sleep on the other. We're adults. Yuan, just don't snore. She was already walking back to the bedroom. I followed, feeling like I was crossing some invisible line. The bed was enormous, king size, with enough space for a small country between us. But I still found myself hyper-aware of every sound she made. The soft rustle of sheets, her breathing evening out as she fell asleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. The second day, she tried to cook breakfast. I'm not completely hopeless in the kitchen, she insisted, scraping charred eggs into the trash. I just don't usually cook for other people. I rescued the bacon before it became a fire hazard. Cereal. I'm supposed to be the perfect fiancé. Perfect fiancés make breakfast. Perfect fiancés don't burn down the apartment. Laughed a real laugh, not the careful one she used in public. Fair point. We ate cereal and split the newspaper like an old married couple. It should have felt fake, but it didn't. My phone buzzed constantly. Congratulations from relatives I barely talked to. Questions from friends who were surprised by the sudden engagement. 3 missed calls from Mengyuan that I ignored. The internet has opinions, Yuan said, scrolling through her laptop. About us, about everything. Look, she turned the screen toward me. The university's gossip forum was on fire. Someone had posted photos from the party, Gia looking radiant. Me checking my watch, the two of us dancing earlier in the evening. Then this morning's photos started appearing, me carrying Yuan's boxes up to my apartment, her wearing my shirt while taking out trash. Simple domestic moments that looked intimate to outside observers. The comments were brutal. Did anyone else see this coming? Yuan was always lurking around them. Homewrecker vibes. She was probably waiting for her chance. Poor Gia. Imagine your best friend stealing your boyfriend. Are we sure they weren't already together? This timing is suspicious. They think I'm the villain, Yuan said quietly. Let them think whatever they want. But she was already reading. More comments, her face getting paler. Yuan always seemed jealous of Gia. Makes sense she'd go after her leftovers. Liu Ze probably got tired of dating someone out of his league and settled for the safe choice. Second place finally gets her consolation prize. I slammed the laptop shut. Stop reading that garbage. It's not garbage if it's true. It's not true. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story, isn't it? She looked up at me with those dark eyes that saw too much. I am second place. I was always the backup friend, the safety school, the consolation prize. And now, I'm the rebound fiancé. You're not. I helped her get ready for dates with you. Did you know that? Picked out half the outfits you complimented. I listened to her complain about how you were too serious, too focused on school, too predictable. Her voice cracked on the last word, and I defended you every time. Something twisted in my chest. Yuan, I'm not asking for pity. I knew what I was signing up for. She stood up, smoothing down her hair. I should get to class. We could skip today. Deal with the gossip. Tomorrow, running away won't help. Besides, if we're going to sell this relationship, we need to act normal. Normal turned out to be a relative concept. Walking across campus with Yuan felt like being under a microscope. Conversations stopped when we passed. People stared, whispered, took not-so-subtle photos. At lunch, we sat in our usual spot in the courtyard. I'd brought sandwiches from the good cafe off campus, the kind Gia always complained were too expensive. You remembered I hate mustard, Yuan said, unwrapping hers. You told me once, at that group dinner last semester. You were listening? I'm always listening. She went very still. Don't say things like that. Why not? 'Cause it makes this harder. Before I could ask what she meant, Gia appeared. She looked terrible, red eyes, wrinkled clothes, hair that hadn't seen a brush in days. We need to talk, she said, ignoring Yuan completely. There's nothing to talk about. Please, 5 minutes. I looked at Yuan, who nodded. Oh, wait here. Gia led me toward the library steps, far enough away that Yuan couldn't hear, but close enough that she could see us. I made a mistake, Gia said immediately. Huge, terrible mistake. But it doesn't have to ruin everything. It's already did. This thing with Yuan, it's not real. You're using her to hurt me. Maybe I am. So what? So she doesn't deserve it. She's in love with you, Liu Ze. Has been for years. And you're going to destroy her when you get bored of this revenge game. I glanced back at Yuan. She was pretending to read while obviously straining to hear our conversation. Maybe she knows what she's getting into. No, she doesn't, because she thinks this might actually turn into something real. But it won't. Will it? When you're done making me pay for my mistakes, you'll go back to your normal life, and she'll be left with nothing. Like you left me with nothing. Gia's face crumpled. I never meant for it to happen. It just... Meng Yuan paid attention to me in ways you stopped doing. He made me feel exciting again, and I was boring. You were safe, predictable. I could plan my whole life around you and know exactly how it would go. She wiped her eyes. But that's not what I wanted anymore. So you decided to have both. I was scared to lose you. But I was suffocating with you. The honesty was brutal, and probably the first real thing she'd said to me in months. At least now you don't have to choose. I walked back to Yuan, who immediately stood up. Everything okay? Perfect. That evening, Grandpa called to discuss engagement party plans. Then my mother called to gush about how she'd always preferred Yuan. Then Professor Qian called to ask if I was sure I knew what I was doing. Is anyone going to ask what I want? Yuan said after I hung up. What do you want? She was quiet for a long time, curled up on the other end of the couch with a textbook in her lap. I want this to be real, she said finally, but I want it to be real because you chose me, not because Gia hurt you. Does the reason matter if the result is the same? It's the only thing that matters. Later, lying in our shared bed, with the lights off and careful space between us, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if she was right. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Enjoy your consolation prize. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. I deleted it and tried to sleep. But Yuan's breathing had changed. She was awake too. Probably reading more internet comments about how she'd stolen her best friend's life. When? You were never second place. She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then why does it feel like I'm still proving myself? I didn't have an answer for that, but somewhere between her question and the sound of rain starting against the windows, I realized that maybe I was proving myself too. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified me. The Grand Hyatt ballroom glittered like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across cream-colored walls. Tables draped in silk held centerpieces of white orchids and baby's breath. A string quartet played softly in one corner, while photographers captured every angle of what the society pages would call the engagement event of the season. I adjusted my bow tie and scanned the room. 300 guest family, friends, business associates, university faculty. Everyone who mattered in Shanghai's elite circles had shown up to celebrate our love story. Clean up nice, Yuan said, appearing at my elbow in a dress that made my breath catch. Midnight blue silk that hugged her curves, her hair swept up to show the diamond earrings I'd given her that morning. She looked like she belonged in this world, my world. We make a good pair, I said, offering her my arm. For the cameras anyway, the receiving line was endless. Handshakes, air kisses, congratulations that felt increasingly surreal. Grandpa Liu beamed like he'd orchestrated the whole thing himself. My mother gushed about how she'd always known. Yuan was the one. Professor Qian shook my hand with a grip that lingered just long enough to feel like a warning. Beautiful ceremony ahead, I'm sure, he said carefully, though I hope you're both prepared for what comes after the celebration. Ends. We'll be fine, Yuan answered, before I could. Her smile never wavered, but I felt her fingers tighten on my arm. I'm sure you will. You both seem very intentional about your choices. Halfway through dinner, Gia arrived. She walked in like she owned the place, wearing a red dress. That was just a shade too bright. Her makeup just a shade too dramatic. Conversations quieted as she made her way to our table, the one we'd deliberately not reserved for her. "Congratulations," she said, her voice carrying across the sudden silence. "I wouldn't have missed this for the world." "Thank you for coming," Yuan replied with perfect politeness. "Though I don't believe you are SVPDO, I'm crashing. But surely there's room for the bride's best friend." Jia's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "We have so much history together." She pulled out an empty chair, one meant for a business associate who'd canceled last-minute tanned, sat down without invitation. The table's other occupants shifted uncomfortably. "Tell me," Jia continued, reaching for a glass of champagne, "how did the proposal happen?" Liu Ze is usually so romantic with these things. "I'm sure it was unforgettable." "It was perfect," Yuan said quietly. "I bet. Though I have to say, the timing was interesting. One day you're supporting me through relationship troubles. The next you're wearing my would-be engagement ring." The words hung in the air like poison. I felt Yuan flinch beside me. "Jia," I said, my voice carrying a warning. "What?" "I'm just curious about the timeline. When exactly did you two realize you were soulmates? Before or after you found me with Meng Yuan?" A waiter appeared at my shoulder, bending low to whisper, "Sir, there's a gentleman at the door requesting to speak with you. Says it's urgent." "Family business." I looked toward the entrance and my blood chilled. Meng Yuan stood there in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking every inch the successful businessman. He caught my eye and smiled, that same smug grin from the supply closet. "Excuse me," I said to the table, rising. "Family business." Yuan moved as if to follow, but I stopped her with a quick shake of my head. "Stay. Handle Jia." I pushed through the crowd, offering forced smiles and nods to guests who tried to stop me with congratulations. By the entrance stood Meng Yuan, hands casually shoved in his pockets like he belonged at a dinner party, not the engagement celebration of the woman he helped betray. "Beautiful event," he said as I approached. Though the bride looks a little tense, I cut to the chase. "What do you want?" He suggested a private chat, gesturing toward a side hallway. "Unless you'd prefer your guests to overhear this." I followed him, every part of me alert. "Congratulations on the engagement," he began smoothly. "Didn't expect you to move on so fast, especially with little Yuan." I told him to get to the point. "Leverage," he said, pulling out his phone and showing me a photo that made my stomach twist. Yuan's bed-rumpled sheets, scattered items. "Amazing what a good photographer can capture with access," he murmured. Another image followed. Her bathroom, clearly taken without her knowledge. "Very photogenic habits, your fiancé." I saw red. "If you've touched her, I haven't yet. But I could. Or I could release these with a compelling story. About your romance, the timing, the overlap." I demanded to know what he wanted. "Partnership," he said plainly. "Your family's AI startup needs investors. I have capital." I asked what happened if I refused. "Then Yuan becomes infamous," he replied. I stepped in, voice low. "You're forgetting something." He raised an eyebrow. "I don't negotiate with garbage." His grin cracked. "Liu Ze, try ruining me. But if you lay a hand on her, or leak a single photo, I'll bury you so deep you'll need archaeologists to find the surface." He smirked. Words from someone with a lot to lose. I turned to go, but his voice caught me. "She's in on it, you know? Yuan, this wasn't all me. She's been playing her part, sending me things, chatting while you planned your anniversary surprise." I walked away without answering, but his laughter followed me. When I got back to the ballroom, chaos had bloomed. Jia stood on a chair, champagne in hand, clearly drunk. "A toast," she cried. "To my dear friend Yuan, who proved that love really can conquer Eliven friendship." Yuan sat motionless at the table, her face pale. "Two timing," Jia said. "Two opportunities. To realizing the best cure for heartbreak is someone else's pain." The room had gone completely still. Even the quartet had stopped playing. "Gaia, sit down," someone whispered. "Not yet," she declared. "You all think this is some romantic fairy tale childhood friends turned lovers? But what if I told you I reached her in 3 long strides and took the microphone? Gently." "Thank you, Jia," I said evenly, turning to the crowd. "Alcohol makes us all reflective." But she's right, love. Teaches lessons. I looked at Yuan, her eyes wide and afraid. It teaches us that the quiet ones are often the ones worth fighting for. That real love doesn't need a spotlight. It just exists. I raised my glass. To Yuan, who saved me from the biggest mistake of my life. And 2 second chances, which sometimes turn out to be first choices in disguise. The crowd erupted into applause, laughter, clinking glasses, the awkwardness covered over with social niceties and empty words. But when I looked at Yuan, her expression chilled me more than Menyuan ever could. It was guilt. The apartment felt hollow when we returned. Yuan slipped off her heels and disappeared into the bathroom without speaking.
Oh my.
Poured 2 glasses of whiskey and sat on the couch to wait. The shower ran for 20 minutes. When she finally emerged, she was wearing pajamas and her hair was damp, but she still looked like she was preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she said. "About Gia's performance tonight. It's about the photos." The whiskey turned to acid in my mouth. "What photos?" She sat on the opposite end of the couch, as far from me as possible. "Meng Yuan showed you something, didn't he? In the hallway?" "How did you? Because he showed me the same photos 3 days ago." The words hit like a physical blow. Pictures of my bedroom, my bathroom. Things that suggested intimacy. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "He said he'd release them with a story about how our engagement was fake unless I convinced you to give him what he wanted. He didn't tell me. I was going to. But then, tonight happened and Gia was there and everything spiraled so fast. You've been lying to me for 3 days? I've been protecting you from what? The truth." She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "From making a stupid decision based on emotion instead of logic. You would have confronted him immediately and made everything worse. Decided to handle it alone. Yes. While letting me think we were partners in this. We are partners. But that doesn't mean it means we don't keep secrets." I was on my feet now, the whiskey glass forgotten. "It means when someone threatens you, you tell me so we can deal with it together." "Why?" "So you can ride to my rescue like some white knight." "I don't need saving, Liu Ze. This isn't about saving you. It's about trust. Trust." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about trust? You proposed to me as revenge against your ex-girlfriend? You're using me to make yourself feel better about being betrayed. And now you're angry that I might have an agenda too? What's that supposed to mean?" She turned from the window, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Meng Yuan was right about one thing. I've been planning this for months. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet." "Planning what?" "Waiting for you and Gia to implode, hoping that when it happened, you'd finally see me as more than just the reliable friend in the background." "Yuan, I knew she was cheating on you before that night. I knew for months. And I didn't tell you because some terrible part of me wanted her to destroy what you had so I could pick up the pieces. The confession hung between us like a live wire. You wanted us to break up. I wanted you to realize she didn't deserve you, that she was taking you for granted while I was falling apart every time I saw you together. So when I proposed, I thought it was fate. I thought finally it was my turn." Tears spilled over, tracking down her cheeks. But it wasn't about me at all. It was about hurting her. I sank back onto the couch, my head in my hands. "Yuan, do you know what the worst part is? I accepted anyway, because being your revenge felt better than being invisible." The words cut deeper than anything Meng Yuan could have threatened. "That's not what this is, isn't it? Be honest with yourself, Liu Ze. If Gia hadn't cheated, would you ever have looked at me twice?" I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. That's what I thought. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm going to pack. Where will you go, Lilies?" "A hotel. It doesn't matter." She headed toward the bedroom, but I caught her wrist. "Don't go." "Why?" "So we can keep pretending this means something, because it does mean something, maybe. It started wrong, but what? You'll learn to love me eventually? I'll be grateful enough to settle for whatever scraps of affection you can spare?" I pulled her closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. "Because I don't want you to go. That's not enough. Then what is? She looked at me for a long moment, her face inches from mine. I could smell her shampoo, feel the warmth of her skin. I want you to choose me, she whispered. Not because Gia hurt you. Not because I'm convenient or safe or loyal, but because you want me. Just me. You in? Can you do that? Can you look at me and see something other than a consolation prize? The question hung in the air between us. I could feel her pulse. Racing beneath my fingers, could see the hope and fear warring in her expression. I should have said yes. Should have told her she was never second choice, never a consolation prize. Should have kissed her and made all the pretty promises she deserved to hear. Instead, I hesitated. It was only a second. Maybe two, but it was enough. Her face shuddered. That's what I thought. She pulled away, and this time I let her go. Yuan, wait. But she was already walking toward the bedroom, her spine straight and her head high. A few minutes later, I heard the zip of a suitcase, sat in the dark living room and listened to her pack her life back into boxes. When the front door finally closed behind her, the silence was deafening. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown. Number 1 down. Your move. I threw the phone across the room and listened to it shatter against the wall. I found her at the university library at 6 a.m. Hunched over a table in the furthest corner with books stacked around her like a fortress. She'd been there all night. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was falling out of its ponytail. And there were coffee rings on the table that suggested she'd been mainlining caffeine for hours. She didn't look up when I sat down across from her. The security guard let me in, I said. Told him I was looking for my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, she turned a page without reading it. I left the ring on your kitchen counter, I saw. Good, then we're even. I studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, the way she was very carefully, not meeting my gaze. You look terrible. Thanks. Really know how to charm a girl. When's the last time you slept? What do you care? You win, don't. She finally looked up, and her eyes were rimmed with red. Just don't. We said everything that needed saying last night. No, we didn't. Yes, we did. You hesitated. That told me everything I needed to know. I hesitated because I'm an idiot, not because what? Because you've suddenly realized you've been madly in love with me this whole time. Because this isn't actually about revenge and wounded pride. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Because I'm scared. She went very still. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of the fact that somewhere between fake proposals and real conversations, I started caring more about your happiness than my revenge. Liu Ze, let me finish. You asked if I could choose you. The truth is, I already did. The moment you walked out last night, I realized that losing you felt worse than anything Gia ever did to me. Tears pooled in her eyes. You're just saying. That because what? Because I enjoy torturing myself? Because I like making dramatic speeches in libraries at dawn? A laugh escaped her, watery but real. You do seem to have a flair for the dramatic. I learned from the best. I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine. Come home. It's not my home. It was never my home. But then make it. Your home? Make it ours. She stared down at our joined hands. What about Meng Yuan, the photos? Let him release them. Let him tell whatever story he wants. I don't care what people think. Your family's business will survive. Scandals. Always do. I squeezed her fingers. What matters is us. Is there an us? Or are you just afraid of being alone? The question was fair. Brutal, but fair. There's an us, I said quietly. There's been an us since you said yes in your pajamas at 2 a.m. I was just too stupid and angry to see it. She pulled her hand away, but gently. I need to think. About what? About whether I can trust you. About whether this is real or just another performance for an audience of 2. What would convince you? She was quiet for a long time, staring out the library windows at the campus coming to life. Students walking to early classes, faculty members hurrying with coffee and briefcases. The normal rhythm of a world that didn't know our private drama was unfolding. Time, she said finally. And honesty, and maybe we should start over. Start over how? She stood up, gathering her books. Ask me out. on a real date. Not because you're angry at Gia, or because your grandfather expects it, or because I'm convenient. Ask me because you want to. And if I do, then maybe I'll say yes. And maybe, this time, it'll be real. She was halfway to the door when I called after her. Yuan? She turned back. Would you like to have dinner with me? Tonight? Somewhere that's not a performance or a statement or revenge against anyone, just dinner. The smile that spread across her face was like sunrise after the longest night. I'd like that, she said, but Liu Ze, yeah. This time I'm choosing the restaurant. After she left, I sat in the empty library and felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. My phone, a replacement for the one I'd shattered, buzzed with a text from Meng Yuan, touching reunion. Too bad it won't last. I deleted it without reading the rest. Whatever game he was playing, whatever threats he was making, they could wait. For the first time since this whole mess started, I had something worth protecting. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not Meng Yuan, not Gia, not even my own fear, take it away. The restaurant Yuan chose was a small, hole-in-the-wall noodle shop in the old quarter. The kind of place where students went when they were homesick and broke. Nothing like the Michelin-starred establishments I usually frequented for business. Dinners or the trendy spots Gia preferred for Instagram photos. This is where you want our first real date? I asked, sliding into the plastic chair across from her. This is where I come when I want to remember who I am. She handed me a laminated menu with pictures of steaming bowls. Besides, if you can't handle me at Don Don Noodles, you don't deserve me at Dom Perignon. The reference made me smile. Fair point. We ordered like normal people, argued over whether to get extra spice, split an appetizer, complained about the fluorescent lighting. It should have felt mundane, but instead it felt revolutionary. No photographers, no social expectations, no performance for anyone but ourselves. Tell me something true, Yuan said, twirling noodles around her chopsticks. What kind of true? Something you've never told anyone else? I thought about it. I used to be terrified of failing my grandfather. That's not surprising. He's intimidating. It's not because he's intimidating. He was the only person who ever believed. I could be something more than my parents' disappointment. Yuan set down her chopsticks. Your parents see you as a disappointment? My father wanted a son who'd take over the family business without questions. My mother wanted a son who'd marry well and produce grandchildren on schedule. I gave them a son who argues with board members and dates scholarship students. Dated past tense. Right, who proposes to scholarship students now? She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Is that what this is? Another way to disappoint them? No, this is me finally doing something for myself instead of for their approval or out of spite. We were quiet for a moment, the weight of honesty settling between us. My turn, I said. Tell me something true. I used to practice conversations with you in the mirror. What? Her cheeks flushed pink. Freshman year. I'd stand in my dorm bathroom and rehearse what I'd say if you ever actually noticed me. Different scenarios if we got paired for a project, if we ended up at the same party, if you needed notes from a class I was in. Did any of them work out the way you practiced? No. In real life, you made me nervous, and I could never remember. My lines, you always seemed so composed. That's because I was usually too tongue-tied to say anything stupid. I reached across the table and touched her hand. For what it's worth, I noticed you. I just didn't know what to do about it because of Gia, because you seemed too good for the mess I was becoming. She was about to respond when my phone started buzzing insistently. Unknown number, but I recognized the pattern from the previous threats. Don't answer it, Yuan said. I have to. If it's him, then let him wait. We're having dinner. But the phone kept buzzing. Then hers started ringing too. That's not good, she said, checking the caller ID. It's Lily, she answered. Hey, what's her? Her face went white. What? When? How did they? She looked at me with panic in her eyes. We'll be right there. What happened? Someone posted photos online of both of us in compromising situations. My blood turned to ice. What kind of photos? The kind that look real, even when they're not. We threw money on the table and ran. Back at my apartment, Lily was pacing the living room with her laptop open, her face flushed with anger. "It's everywhere," she said, without preamble. "University forums, social media, anonymous gossip sites. Someone really wants to destroy you both." She turned the screen toward us. My stomach dropped. The photos were expertly manipulated, my face digitally placed onto someone else's body in intimate situations with a woman who looked like Yawan. Hotel rooms, bedrooms, scenarios that suggested a long-term affair. The timestamps showed these were supposedly taken months ago, Lily continued. "Before your engagement? The story being pushed is that you two were having an affair while you were still with Gia." "It's all fake," Ewan said. "I know that. You know that. But the internet doesn't care about facts when the fiction is more interesting." Scrolled through the comments, each one worse than the last. I knew something was fishy about this engagement. Poor Gia. Her best friend and boyfriend were playing her the whole time. Yuan always seems so innocent. Guess still waters really do run deep. Liu Ze is trash. Cheated on his girlfriend, then tried to make her look like the villain. More, Lily said grimly. She clicked to another tab. Someone leaked financial records showing large deposits into Yuan's bank account. Made it look like you were paying her. "Paying me for what?" Yuan asked. "Take your pick." The theories range from escort services to industrial espionage. I felt something dark and cold settle in my chest. This is professional-level manipulation. This isn't just revenge. This is systematic character assassination. Who would go this far? Yuan asked. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Meng Yuan's smiling face. "Let me in, cousin. We need to chat." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. He strolled in like he owned the place, nodding politely to Lily and Yuan. "Enjoying your evening?" "Heard you had dinner in quite the charming establishment." "You've been following us." "I've been protecting my investment." He helped himself to a seat on my couch. "See, here's the thing. I offered you a simple business partnership, and you declined rather rudely, so I had to get creative." "You did this," Yuan said. "The photos, the bank records, all of it. I prefer to think of it as market correction. Your little revenge romance was getting too much positive attention. Bad for my brand. Your brand? Gia and I are announcing our engagement next week. Can't have her looking like the villain in this story when she's about to become my fiancé." The room went deadly quiet. "You're marrying Gia?" I asked. "Why not?" "She's beautiful, connected, and surprisingly good at playing the victim when it suits her needs. Plus, she comes with very useful information about your family's business dealings." I took a step toward him, but Yuan caught my arm. "What do you want?" "Same thing I wanted before. Partnership. Your family's AI venture." Liu Ze, in exchange for these photos disappearing and the truth about their manipulation coming to light. And if we refuse, then the story gets worse. Much worse. Videos, two very convincing ones. And tomorrow, the business press gets an anonymous tip about irregularities in your family's accounting. Funny how quickly reputation can crumble when people start asking the right questions. "You're threatening our families now?" "I'm offering a solution. 60% stake in the AI venture, and all this goes away. You too can have your little love story, Gia. Gets to be the wronged woman who found true love. And I get what I've always deserved, a seat at the big kids' table." I looked at Yiwen, saw the fear and fury warring in her expression. "Give us time to think about it," I said. 24 hours. After that, things get very unpleasant for everyone involved." He stood up, straightening his jacket. "Oh, and Liu Ze, you might want to check your grandfather's blood pressure medication. All this stress can't be good for his heart." The threat was barely veiled. I felt something snap inside me. If you touch my family, I won't have to. The shame will do most of the work for me. After he left, the three of us sat in silence, the weight of the situation crushing. "We can't give him what he wants," Lily said finally. "Can't let him destroy our families either," Yuan replied. I looked at the laptop screen, at the photos that were already spreading across the internet like wildfire, at the comments that would follow us for years. "There's a third option," I said quietly. "What?" "We beat him at his own game." Professor Kian's office smelled like old books and jasmine tea. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, watching us with the patient expression of someone who'd seen every possible variation of student drama over his 30-year career. "This is quite a mess you found yourselves in," he said, after we'd finished explaining everything. "We need your help," I said. "With what exactly?" "Advice, perspective. You've always been good at seeing things clearly when we're too close to." The situation poured 3 cups of tea from a ceramic pot, taking his time with the ritual. "Tell me, when you first proposed to Yuan, what did you hope to accomplish?" "I wanted to hurt Jia. And now?" I glanced at Yuan, who was staring into her teacup like it held the answers to everything. "Now I want to protect Yuan." "Interesting." "Evolution." Professor Qian turned to her. "And you, Miss Chen? What did you hope to accomplish when you accepted his proposal?" "I wanted him to see me as more than just the reliable friend, and now I want to stop everyone else from getting hurt because of our choices." Professor Qian nodded slowly. "Let me ask you both something. I could wave a magic wand and make all the external pressures disappear, the blackmail, the photos, the family expectations, the public scrutiny. What would you choose?" The question hung in the air between us. "Each other," Waiwan said quietly. "We'd choose each other. Even knowing how this started? Even knowing the mistakes you've both made?" "Because of how it started," I said. "We've seen each other at our worst, and we're still here." Professor Qian smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in weeks. "Then you have your answer." "About what?" "About whether love can survive if it was born from a lie." "The lie wasn't the foundation, it was the catalyst. What you've built since then, that's real. But the blackmail will only have power over you if you let it." He leaned forward. "Tell me, what do you think would happen if you simply told the truth?" "People would hate us," Yuan said. "Some people, yes. But others might surprise you. There's something to be said for radical honesty, especially when the alternative is letting someone else control your narrative." I thought about Meng Yuan's smirk, about the photos spreading across the internet, about the 24-hour deadline hanging over our heads. "You're suggesting we go public? Tell everyone this started as revenge?" "I'm suggesting you take away his power by refusing to. Be ashamed of your choices. Yes, your engagement began for the wrong reasons. But look at where you are now. Look at how you've grown. Look at what you've learned about yourselves and each other. Photos are fake, and any expert can prove that. The bank records can be explained. The timeline can be corrected." He paused. "But only if you're willing to be completely honest about everything else." Yuan and I looked at each other across the small office. "It would mean admitting we used each other," she said. "It would mean admitting we found something real in the process," I replied. "Your families would be furious, and Yuan would lose his leverage. People would judge us. People are already judging us." Professor Qian cleared his throat. "If I may offer one more piece of advice?" We turned to him. "Love stories don't have to be perfect from the beginning. Sometimes the most honest ones are about people who started in the wrong place for the wrong reasons and found their way to something true. There's no shame in that. There's courage." After we left his office, Yuan and I walked across campus in silence. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the buildings, and the air carried the promise of autumn. "Are we really going to do this?" she asked as we reached the main courtyard. "Tell the truth, you mean?" "All of it. The revenge, the fake engagement, the real feelings that developed afterward. Everything." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Do you trust me?" "Yes. Do you trust us?" She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "Yes, then. Let's give them a story worth telling." That night we worked until dawn, crafting a statement that laid out everything: the betrayal, the revenge proposal, the genuine feelings that had grown between us, the blackmail attempts, and our decision to choose honesty over manipulation. "Are you sure about this?" Yuan asked, as I prepared to hit publish on my social media accounts. "No, but I'm sure about you." She kissed me, then soft and quick and tasting like the coffee we'd been surviving on all night. "Whatever happens next," she said, "we face it together." "Together," I agreed. I posted the statement at 7 a.m. just as the campus was waking up. Within an hour it had been shared hundreds of times. By noon, It was trending on 3 different platforms. The responses were mixed. Some people called us manipulative. Others applauded our honesty. Many were just confused by the whole mess. But buried in the chaos of comments and reactions, a pattern emerged. People respected the truth, even when it was ugly. "Look at this," Yuan said, showing me her phone. It was a message from one of our classmates. "Thank you for being real about how messy love can be. It gives the rest of us hope that we don't have to be perfect to deserve happiness." My phone buzzed with a call from Grandpa Liu. "Boy," he said. Without preamble, that was either the stupidest thing you've ever done or the smartest. Which do you think it was? Both. Your mother's furious. Your father's calculating the business implications, and half the board thinks you've lost your mind. And you. I think you finally grew a spine. About time you stopped letting other people write your story. So you're not disowning me? You're falling in love with a good woman? Hardly. Though next time you decide to blow up your life, maybe give your old grandfather a heads up first. After I hung up, Yuan was reading something on her laptop with a strange expression. "What is it?" Meng Yuan's response. She turned the screen toward me. His statement was brief and poisonous. "Interesting story from my cousin and his accomplice. Amazing what people will say to cover their tracks when caught. The evidence speaks for itself." But something had changed. The comments under his post weren't the supportive chorus he'd probably expected. Instead, people were questioning his motives, his timing, his convenient engagement to Jia. "Why are you so invested in destroying them? This feels like revenge, not justice. If their relationship is real now, does it matter how it started?" "He's losing the narrative," I said. "Good, because I have an idea about how to make sure he loses everything else too." The evidence was damning. Financial records showing payments from Meng Yuan to the photo manipulation service. Email chains discussing the fabricated bank deposits. Phone logs proving he'd been coordinating with Jia to time their attacks for maximum damage. But the smoking gun was the video footage from the university's security cameras Meng Yuan entering the computer lab at 3 a.m. with a USB drive, using stolen student credentials to access the systems where the fake photos were first uploaded. "How did you get all this?" I asked Yuan, as we sat in the lawyer's office, spreading the evidence across a mahogany conference table. "Lily," she said simply. "Turns out having a sister who's president of the computer science club has its advantages. She's been tracking the digital footprint since the photos first appeared, and the financial records. Professor Qian has friends in many places. Amazing how quickly people want to cooperate when they realize they've been helping someone commit crimes." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who specialized in corporate fraud, looked up from the documents. "This is more than enough for criminal charges. Wire fraud, identity theft, extortion, defamation. Your cousin is looking at serious prison time. What about the business partnership he was after? With this evidence, the board will vote him out before lunch. Your family's company's protected." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by something darker. "I want him destroyed," Liu Ze Yuan said quietly. "He threatened our families. He tried to blackmail us. He lost. Isn't that enough?" I looked at her across the table. 3 months ago, she would have deferred to whatever I wanted. Now she was challenging me to be better than my worst impulses. "What are you suggesting? We give him a choice. He can face criminal charges, or he can disappear quietly. Leave the country, give up any claim to the family business, and never contact any of us again. That's too merciful, strategic. If we destroy him publicly, it becomes another scandal our families have to weather. If he just goes away, then the story ends with us choosing love over revenge." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "It's unusual, but not impossible. We could arrange something through unofficial channels." "And Jia?" I asked. "What about her?" "She was part of this. The photos, the timing, she was a pawn," Yuan said. "Meng Yuan played her just like he tried to play us. The difference is we figured it out in time." I thought about Jia's red dress at the engagement party, her desperate attempts to sabotage our relationship, the way she'd looked when Meng Yuan announced their engagement, not happy, but trapped. "You want to save her too? I want to break the cycle. Someone has to choose forgiveness, or this never ends." 2 weeks later, I watched from my office window as Mengyon's car pulled away from the building where he'd just signed the papers, formally relinquishing any claim to the family business. His face was stone as he drove past, but I caught a glimpse of relief in his expression. Exile was better than prison. He knew it, and so did I. Any regrets? Ewan asked, appearing beside me with 2 cups of coffee. About letting him go? About everything else? Yes, such is the way it started, the people who got hurt along the way. The time we wasted pretending instead of being honest. She handed me a coffee and leaned against the window frame. I have a theory about that. What's your theory? I think we needed to make those mistakes to become the people who were right for each other. 3 months ago, you were too angry to love anyone properly. I was too insecure to believe I deserved love at all. Now we know the difference between using someone and choosing them. My phone buzzed with a text. Gaia, I heard about the scholarship fund you set up. Thank you. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it anyway. The scholarship was Yuan's idea fund for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, named in honor of Professor Qian's years of service. Jia had been the first recipient. Her application essay, a raw confession about the mistakes she'd made and her determination to rebuild her life somewhere else. She's leaving for England next month, Yuan said, reading over my shoulder. You okay with that? I'm okay with her getting a second chance somewhere she can start fresh? Even after everything? Especially after everything? Holding on to anger would just make me bitter. I pulled her closer, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. How did you get so wise? Survival instinct. If I stayed angry at everyone who hurt me, I'd never have room for anything else, including me, especially you. You hurt me the most, and you're also the best thing that ever happened to me. Funny how that works. Outside the window, Shanghai stretched endlessly in all directions, millions of people living their own complicated love stories, making their own mistakes, hopefully learning from them. What happens next? I asked. Next, we plan a real wedding. One where everyone knows exactly why they're there and what they're celebrating. And after that, we live happily ever after. Or at least, we try our best to be happy more often than not. I kissed the top of her head. I can work with that. Good. Because I already put a deposit down on the venue without asking me. Without asking your opinion. There's a difference. Shh. She grinned up at me. I figured after everything we've been through, you'd trust me to pick a good restaurant, as long as it's not another noodle shop. It's not another noodle shop, promise? Promise. Though I make no guarantees about the playlist.
Lily's
in charge of music, and she has very strong opinions about romantic ballads. I groaned, already imagining the musical choices of a 17-year-old hopeless romantic. Too late to elope. Much too late. We're having the wedding. We're facing the music literally, and we're celebrating the fact that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that start completely wrong. And sometimes they're the ones where people choose to keep writing. Better chapters. Exactly. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, I realized that for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about revenge or regret or what other people thought of our choices. I was thinking about tomorrow and the day after that and all the ordinary, extraordinary days we'd have together if we were brave enough to keep choosing each other. It turned out that was the only choice that really mattered. The lecture hall was packed. Students filled every seat, with more standing in the aisles and crowding around the doorway. Professor Chen Yuan commanded the room with the same quiet confidence she'd always had. But now it was backed by the authority of someone who'd earned her place through merit rather than lurking in shadows. Modern relationship dynamics in digital societies, she was saying, clicking to her next slide. The intersection of authentic emotion and performative behavior. Who can tell me why this matters in contemporary social psychology? A dozen hands. Shut up, she called on a sophomore in the third row. Because we're always performing now? Like, even our private moments get shared online, so nothing feels completely real anymore. Interesting perspective. Anyone want to build on that? I leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, watching her work. She was wearing the navy blue blazer I'd bought her for her birthday, professional, but not stuffy, authoritative, but approachable. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, and she had that slight crease between her eyebrows she always got when she was thinking hard about something. She looked like she belonged here, like she'd always belonged here. The challenge, she continued, is learning to distinguish between authentic vulnerability and strategic revelation. When we share our struggles and triumphs, are we connecting genuinely with others, or are we curating an image of relatability? A student near the front raised her hand. But Professor Chen, isn't it possible to be both? Like maybe you start sharing something for the wrong reasons, but then it becomes real because people respond to it honestly. Yuan paused, her eyes finding mine across the crowded room. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. That's an excellent point, Li Ming. Sometimes our most authentic moments emerge from initially artificial circumstances. The key is recognizing when that transformation happens and choosing to embrace the authentic over the performative. The class continued for another 20 minutes, students eagerly engaging with concepts that I recognized from our late-night conversations. Over the past 2 years, she'd been working on this research since returning from her semester at Oxford, a semester that had given us both space to figure out who we were apart before choosing to be together. When the last student filed out, I approached the podium, where she was gathering her papers. Good lecture, Professor Chen. Thank you, Mr. Liu. Though I should point out that attendance is optional for non-enrolled auditors. I had some free time. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm presenting my research findings to the board next week. It's maybe a little to do with that. She finished packing her bag and looked up at me with those dark eyes that still made my breath. Catch, I don't need you to hold my hand through this, right? I know. I also know that having backup never hurts, even when the backup is a biased party, especially then. We walked out of the building together, falling into the comfortable rhythm we developed over months of shared routines. But this felt different somehow, more significant. You're nervous, I observed. I'm not nervous. You're doing that thing where you organize your papers more than necessary. She looked down at the folder in her hands, then laughed. Okay, maybe I'm a little nervous. This research is important to me because it's about us, because it's about everyone. We're just one case study among dozens. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Her research into authentic versus performative relationships had grown directly out of our experience, the way we'd started with a lie and found truth, the way public pressure had nearly destroyed something real, the way choosing honesty had saved us. Want to grab dinner? I asked as we reached the campus. Gates. I know this place that serves excellent don don noodles. It's the same place where you took me on our first real date.
Yes.
The same place where I'm taking you on our last fake date. She stopped walking. Last fake date? I pulled a small velvet box from my jacket pocket. Not the same ring from 2 years ago, that one carried too much history, too much baggage. This one was simpler, more elegant. More us, Yuan, I said, dropping to one knee right there on the sidewalk, as students and faculty streamed around. Us, will you marry me? Liu Ze, what are you for real this time? Not because I'm angry at someone else, not because my grandfather expects it, or because it makes a good story, or because we need to prove anything to anyone. Tears were already forming in her eyes. And why? Because I love you, because you make me better, because I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you every single day in ways that matter. You're really doing this here? In front of half the university? I'm doing this here because this is where you became the person I fell in love with. This is where you found your voice, where you claimed your space, where you stopped being anyone's shadow and started being completely yourself. She was crying now, but she was also smiling. This is so public. Everything else we've done has been public. Might as well make the good stuff public too. People are staring. Let them stare. Let them see what it looks like when two people choose each other for all the right reasons. A crowd had gathered around U.S. students holding up phones. Faculty members watching with amused expressions. Campus security looking uncertain about whether they should intervene. This is going to be all over social media in 10 minutes, Yuan said. Probably 5 minutes. So what's your answer? She looked down at me, then at the ring, then at the crowd of people documenting this moment that would follow us for the rest of our lives, yes, she said softly. I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you over all the yes, said louder, laughing through her tears. Yes, you dramatic, impossible man. Yes, I'll marry you. The crowd erupted in cheers. As I slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up to kiss her, this time, when the cameras flashed and the phones recorded and the comments started flowing online, I didn't care about the narrative or the optics or what anyone thought about our timing. This time, it was just us. So, Yuan said when we finally broke apart, what happens now? Now we go eat noodles and argue about wedding planning? I meant bigger picture. Bigger picture? I tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Now we live happily ever after. Or at least, we work really hard at being happy more often than not. No more revenge plots? No more fake relationships? No more dramatic public scenes? Oh, I can't promise about the dramatic public scenes. You know how I am about grand gestures. She laughed, the sound bright and real and completely unguarded. I love you too, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. It was clear, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, Liu Ze. Not because you rescued me from anything, or because you were the best option available, or because I was tired of being alone. I love you because you're stubborn and protective, and sometimes too clever for your own good. But also kind and honest and brave enough to keep growing. Even when I mess up, especially when you mess up. That's when you're most yourself. We walked toward the noodle shop hand in hand, phones still buzzing with notifications as the news of our engagement spread across the internet. But for once, the attention felt different. It's not like performance or manipulation or damage control. It felt like celebration. You know, Yuan said as we settled into our usual plastic chairs, this is going to make excellent data for my research. Happy to contribute to science. The follow-up study writes itself. Long-term outcomes in relationships that transition from performative to authentic. We'll be famous. We're already famous. Now we'll be famous for the right reasons. Took my hand, her engagement ring catching the fluorescent light. So what do you think? Did we get our happy ending? I looked at Hireli. The woman who'd said yes to a fake proposal in her pajamas at 2 a.m., who'd called me out when I was being cruel, who'd chosen forgiveness over revenge and honesty over safety, who'd become everything I didn't know I needed and everything I was. Lucky enough to find, I think we got our happy beginning. Outside the window, Shanghai hummed with its usual energy, millions of people living their own complicated love stories, making their own mistakes, hopefully learning from them the way we had. And inside the noodle shop, we started planning our real future, one honest conversation at a time. The end up next. You've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.